When did you first recognize that integrating your whole self and bringing that into everything you do might be a valuable approach?
Well, I spent my first 15 years as an adult, maybe longer than that, maybe more like 20 years as an adult inside of academia in some way or another, as a student, as a grad student, as a professor. And so I don't know that I realized anything was missing until I left it. And when I left it to work in EdTech in 2012, something started to feel off in my balance. The one lovely thing about academia is there's always lots to do. There are multiple classes to teach. There are committees to be involved in. There are extra jobs on the side that you can do. And so I had always found a way to fulfill my brain's needs with the things that surrounded me. And when I moved into EdTech, I started to feel hints that things might be missing. And one of the things that I realized about probably 5 years into that was that I really needed like a teaching and learning outlet. I have been involved with classes pretty much since I was 18 years old in college. Even then I graded papers for a professor. I taught review sessions for math subjects. The next year I was a TA for chemistry. Like, I've been teaching since I was 18 years old. And to not be teaching was just very strange. And I realized that there's something about teaching that if the first thing is that you can actually leave your entire life behind when you're in front of a classroom. It is so all-consuming to manage a class of students, teach the content, figure out the right pedagogy to go along with all of that and the behavior management. You pretty much have to leave everything else in your life behind. So in some ways, it's like therapy from your regular life, because whatever was worrying you actually cannot worry about it. At least I can't while in front of a classroom. It's like fully occupying of my entire self. And so not having that kind of release from regular life meant that you were thinking and worrying about all your normal things all the time without any break from it. And the other thing I realized was that teaching gives you a very real kind of petri dish to try creative things. Like, you can think of them on a Monday and try them on a Tuesday and see how they work with real students, in a real situation. And very little in the corporate world gives you that kind of creative outlet to just like have an idea and try it the next day. Depending on the size of the organization, sometimes you have an idea, you have to run it through 12 people, it has to run its way back down to you. By the time it gets back down to you, you have 12 better ideas, and none of those have been approved, right? So I found as I moved into EdTech that I really had a need to fill. I'm guessing that a lot of people fill that outlet because they have their own children, and I don't. And so this is kind of like, it's my connection to youth. It's my connection to just having a break from my regular life and just that real world creative outlet, I guess. So that's probably when I first started to feel that something was off. I really felt it. I think I really felt it the most when I was I did a stint as the director of learning design for Western Governors University. And for a while there, I had a really great team, and we did a ton of really creative work together. And then that team started to peel off to other leaders, and my team kept shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And as that happened, like, my outlet to do creative things kind of started to disappear. And I probably would have just gone and taught a class and like fulfilled it that way, except they had a really strict no outside work policy, like none. You couldn't drive an Uber, you couldn't teach a class, you couldn't be a karate instructor, like you couldn't do any outside work. And that was, the thing that I would have gone to get that fulfilled. It wasn't available to me. And in the end, I ended up leaving. And that was probably at least a good part of it.
How much of what was missing in those situations was the explicit act of teaching, or teaching kids?
That's a good question.
kids.
I do think that for me, that is like if I had to pick my ideal work-life balance, that there would always be that there. Whether one year the first year after I left Course Tune, I really was exhausted and I just wanted to have something of a break year. So my break year is probably different than other people's version of a break year. So I went to try my hand at teaching in K-12, and I taught a high school class on entrepreneurship, and I taught this middle school class on technology and society, which had no curriculum whatsoever, and I had to completely build from scratch. And then I taught English language to immigrants who were new to the United States, who have literacy in another language, but not English. And so that was kind of like teaching three things I had never taught before to three different levels of students. And that was my break year from everything else, which is probably not, like I said, anybody else's version of a break year, but it was my version of a break year. And I mean, your question is how much of it is teaching? I think that that's my ideal, right? Like if I could do anything, teaching is just this lovely balance of creativity and fun, and teaching kids, you laugh every day at the things they say, especially middle schoolers. They also are incredibly frustrating, but you do laugh every day. And I can remember weeks in the corporate world where I didn't laugh once on the job, the entire week. And I think that's, again, it might be something you normally get from having your own children, but, I need that personally. I think you have to, at some point, recognize the things that you need personally, right?
Absolutely. This is one of the things I help people recognize and give to themselves is what I call their replenishing resources. That we have a set of things that we need to get. And if any of those we're not getting enough or refilling enough on whatever durations they need to come in at, then we can be super unhappy. A lot of the burnout and overwhelm for the people that I've worked with and encountered, if not the primary root cause, is often their one or more of their replenishing resources is too low. It's been too low for too long. And it's like your garage door opener when one of those batteries is flat and the other one's super good. Like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and you can't ever tell what's going to happen. And people are the same way.
I did feel like in the corporate world, in early days, like of Course Tune, we were still building so much from scratch, and it was very creative, and you could see kind of like what was happening every day, and that was great. But as products mature, like my vision of a roadmap, goes like 4 years out. You're building tiny little iterations over, 2 to 4 weeks or 6 weeks each time, right? And so that fulfillment of that like immediate satisfaction of like, ooh, let's try this, and then seeing a result, it's like it got to the point where like when you finally got to see the finished result, you were already on to the next iteration of what needed to be built. It was almost always like a dissatisfaction, because the day you released something, you'd start hearing about all the other features people wanted to have that you knew were in development but didn't get out then, just wasn't quite the same anymore. And teaching did help temper that a bit, because there was always a creative outlet for that. In fact, when I wrote the offer letter to myself for this new company, I made sure to put in that letter that I would always be allowed to teach at least one prep, and that that's important to me, and I don't want it taken away from me.